If your midterm rental is sitting empty and you're not getting the inquiries you expected, before you lower the rent, buy new furniture, or convince yourself that you picked the wrong property, I want you to ask yourself one question. Am I even listing my property in the right places? Because a lot of landlords immediately assume something is wrong with the house. They start thinking, maybe my furniture is outdated, maybe my pictures aren't good enough, maybe my price is too high, maybe the market is saturated, maybe nobody wants a midterm rental in my area. And sometimes none of those things are the real problem. Sometimes your property is perfectly fine. You're just waiting for the right tenant on the wrong website. And this is especially important if you're trying to build a rental business that doesn't require you to spend your entire day looking for tenants. You don't want to constantly post in groups. You don't want to answer your phone all day. You don't want to chase somebody down and convince them to rent your house. You want to build a system where your property is positioned in front of people who are already looking for what you have. That's the difference. So, in this video, I want you to go through some of the different places you can list a furnished midterm rental, how each platform can work differently, and most importantly, why I don't believe you should depend on just one. Because every platform attracts a slightly different type of renter. And once you understand that, you can start being more strategic about where you put your property. Let's start with Facebook. Facebook can absolutely help you find a renter. You have Facebook Marketplace, you have local housing groups, you have traveling nurse groups, you have healthcare professional groups, you have relocation groups, you have community groups. You may even have groups specifically for people moving into your city. So there are definitely people there looking for housing. But here's the problem. Facebook can also create a lot of work. You post your property and suddenly you start getting messages. Is this still available? What's the lowest you'll take? Can I move in this weekend? Can you hold it for me? Do I need a deposit? Can I bring 3 dogs? And the conversation can go back and forth and back and forth. The source where you're working from also points out that Facebook Marketplace may require more work because you have to sort through and vet more prospects. So, Facebook, work. Absolutely. But you need boundaries. Don't type a custom response to every person. Have a message template. Have a frequently asked questions. Have your application ready. Have your requirements already established. And when somebody contacts you, your system should move them forward. Don't spend 3 days talking to somebody who hasn't filled out an application. Use Facebook for exposure. Don't let Facebook control your time. Now, let's talk about Zillow. A lot of people think of Zillow only as a traditional long-term rental platform, but that can only work in your favor. Because you have people on Zillow who are already looking for housing. Some of them may think you're looking for a 12-month lease, but then they come across a furnished property. Utilities are already turned on, Wi-Fi is included, furniture is already there. They don't have to move a couch, they don't have to buy a bed, they don't have to sign a year-long lease. And suddenly, a furnished midterm rental starts making sense. This could be somebody relocating for work. It could be someone whose house is being repaired. It could be a professional coming into town for a project. It could even be somebody who just needs flexibility before deciding where they want to live permanently. The source gives an example of a tenant coming through Zillow who stayed for 18 months and paid above the typical long-term rental rate. So, if you have a furnished property, I wouldn't automatically ignore Zillow. I would test it. Put the listing up. Make it clear that the property is furnished. Make the lease length clear. Explain what's included. Make the pictures strong and see what kind of renter your market produces. We're not trying to guess where the tenant is. We're positioning the property in multiple places and letting the market tell us. This is probably a good place for me to introduce myself, by the way. If you're new here, my name is Linza, and I'm known as the introvert landlord. I'm a realtor here in the South Carolina market, and for the last several years, my husband and I have been building and managing furnished rentals for traveling nurses, healthcare professionals, and other working professionals. And yes, I really am an introvert. I don't enjoy spending all day on the phone. I don't want to constantly meet tenants in person. And I definitely don't want to chase people down trying to convince them to rent one of my properties. So I built a rental business around something that works better for my personality: systems, structure, written communication, and putting my properties in front of the right people. That's what the introvert landlord is really about. It's not about avoiding people. It's about building a rental business that doesn't require you to constantly talk to people in order to make it work. And if you're a landlord, future landlord, or you have an extra property and you're interested in learning how to turn it into a furnished midterm rental, we also offer coaching to help you understand the process. And make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel because I share what we've learned about traveling nurses, midterm rentals, setting up properties, finding tenants, reducing unnecessary tenant contact, and creating more peaceful rental income. Now let's keep going. Then you have Airbnb. Now this one surprises some people because when you say Airbnb, most people automatically think weekend guests, vacationers, birthday trips, parties, 3-night stays. And if you're trying to get away from the short-term rental model, you may think, I don't want anything to do with Airbnb. But Airbnb can also be used strategically for longer stays. There are people on Airbnb looking for 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, 6 months, sometimes longer. The source we're working from is a great example of that. 7 out of the landlord's last 10 rentals discussed in the source came through Airbnb. And those renters weren't all weekend travelers. They were families, college students, traveling nurses, a PhD student, a senior account director, different types of people, all needing furnished housing for longer periods of time. That's why I don't look at Airbnb as only a short-term rental site. I look at Airbnb as another search engine for furnished housing. You decide how you use it. If you don't want 2-night bookings, don't build your listing around 2-night bookings. If your strategy is 30 days or more, structure it around that. The platform can still provide visibility, and one thing Airbnb has that smaller platforms may not have is traffic. A lot of people already know Airbnb. They already have the app. They already trust the platform. So when they're relocating or working somewhere temporarily, Airbnb may be one of the first places they check. Now, do you have fees? Yes. The source mentions a host fee associated with Airbnb as well. But sometimes I look at these fees differently. If a platform brings me a qualified tenant who stays for 3 months, I'm not automatically going to dismiss that platform because it cost me something. I want to know, did the property get rented? Did the numbers still make sense? Did the tenant fit my strategy? That's the question. Why I don't believe in one platform. Now here's where I think landlords get into trouble. They'll list the house on one website and then they wait. Monday comes, nothing. Tuesday, nothing. Wednesday, one inquiry. Thursday, nothing. Then by Friday, they're panicking. They start changing the price. They start changing the furniture. They start thinking the market doesn't work. And meanwhile, their ideal tenant may be searching on a completely different website. That's why the source recommends being on at least 2 platforms. I agree with that philosophy. I don't want my entire business dependent on one company's algorithm because platforms change. Traffic changes, rules change, competition changes, and different renters have different habits. A corporate professional may start on Zillow, somebody relocating may start on Airbnb, another renter may see you in a Facebook group, and a traveling nurse may go directly to a site built around furnished housing. The goal isn't to be everywhere. The goal is to have enough visibility that the right person can find you. And here's something else I want you to understand. Your listing should do most of the talking. Because I don't want to get on the phone and give somebody a 15-minute tour of my property every time they inquire, Your pictures should answer questions. Your description should answer questions. Your amenities should answer questions. Your frequently asked questions should answer questions. Your pricing should be clear. Your lease length should be clear. Your deposit should be clear. Your policies should be clear. The more information you provide up front, the fewer unnecessary conversations you have later. That's the introvert landlord part of this strategy. We're not trying to become better salespeople. We're trying to build better systems. And before I get to the last site, let me tell you why this one matters so much to me. Over the years, we've generated more than $500,000 in rental income through Furnish Finder across 7 different properties. And here's the part I really want landlords to hear. Those properties still look almost the same today as they did when we first started. We didn't constantly remodel them. We didn't replace the furniture every year. We didn't chase every new design trend. We didn't feel like we had to turn each property into a luxury hotel. We focused on keeping them clean, comfortable, functional, well-maintained, and positioned in front of the right people. That's an important lesson because sometimes landlords believe that if their property isn't booking, they need to spend another $5,000 or $10,000 changing the house. New sofa, new dining table, new artwork, new flooring, new everything. And sometimes that's not where the money needs to go. Sometimes you need to improve the marketing and positioning, not the property. Our 7 properties are proof of that for us. They've produced more than $500,000 through Furnish Finder, and many of the same design decisions, furniture pieces, layouts, and systems we started with are still working today. That taught me something very important. Your property doesn't have to constantly look new. It needs to constantly solve the tenant's problem. For a traveling nurse, that problem may be, I need somewhere clean. I need somewhere safe. I need somewhere close to a hospital. I need Wi-Fi. I need utilities. I need a comfortable bed, and I need somewhere I can stay for the next 3 months without a bunch of headaches. If your property solves that problem, don't overcomplicate it. And that brings me to Furnish Finder. I save Furnish Finder for last for a reason. Because if my goal is to attract traveling nurses, healthcare professionals, and people who are already looking for furnished temporary housing, this is the platform that has been a major part of our business. And here's why I like it. The people searching Furnish Finder already understands the concept. I don't have to explain why the property is furnished. I don't have to explain why it's a 3-month stay. I don't have to convince them that utilities being included has value. They're already looking for temporary furnished housing, and that is a completely different conversation. To me, that makes the process easier, especially if you're trying to build a rental model around traveling nurses and healthcare professionals. The original source also identifies Furnish Finder as one of the platforms used to source renters. Now, here's the mistake I see landlords make with Furnish Finder. They put the property up there and think that's the entire strategy, and it's not. You still need good pictures. You still need competitive pricing. You still need to explain how close you are to the hospitals. You still need a strong headline. You still need to respond to inquiries. You still need screening. You still need a lease. You still need systems. The website is not going to fix a bad listing. But what Furnish Finder can do is put you in front of a very specific audience. And for the introvert landlord model, that's valuable. Because again, I don't want more inquiries. I want better inquiries. There's a difference. 100 random people asking me questions isn't necessarily better than 5 qualified healthcare professionals who need housing for the next 3 months. That's what I want you thinking about. Not how many messages did I get. Ask, did the right people find my property? Here's how I would build the strategy if I were starting with a furnished midterm rental today. I would not put everything on one site and hope for the best. I would create a simple listing strategy. I may use Facebook for additional exposure. I may test Zillow for relocation and longer stay renters. I may use Airbnb to reach people already searching for furnished housing. And then I would make sure I'm on Furnish Finder if traveling nurses and healthcare professionals are part of my target market. Then I would watch the results. Which site is producing inquiries? Which site is producing qualified inquiries? Which site is producing bookings? What kind of tenants are coming from each platform? How long are they staying? What are they willing to pay? That's how you start learning your market. Don't build your strategy based on what somebody in another state told you works for them. Your market will tell you, but you have to give your property enough exposure to collect the data. The goal is not more work. And I want to end with this because this is important. Listing on multiple websites does not mean you need to create more chaos for yourself. That's where systems come in. You can have one set of professional photos, one strong property description, one frequently asked question, one application, one screening process, one lease process, one payment process, and one set of message templates. Then you adapt those things to each platform. So instead of you constantly working harder, your system starts working harder. That's the goal. Because I became an introvert landlord, because I wanted rental income without building a business that required me to constantly talk to people, I want my properties to work. I want my listings to work. I want my systems to work. And I want the right tenants to find me. So if your property is sitting empty right now, before you completely change everything about the house, go look at where you listed. Are you only on one site? Are you actually where your ideal tenant is searching? Are your listings clear? Are your pictures doing their job? And if you're trying to attract traveling nurses and healthcare professionals, are you on Furnish Finder? Remember, we've generated over $500,000 through Furnish Finder with 7 different properties, and those properties still look almost the same as when we started. That's because the goal was never to constantly redesign the house. The goal was to put the right property in front of the right tenant. Sometimes your house doesn't need a makeover. Sometimes your rent doesn't need to be lowered. Sometimes you simply need to get the property in front of the right people. List smarter. Let your listing do the talking. Build systems around the inquiries and stop chasing the tenants. Less talking, less chasing, better inquiries, longer stays, more peace. That's the introvert landlord way.